everyone, and welcome to the currently unnamed music podcast.
We had a name. What happened?
Okay, it's not confirmed, but
It's not confirmed yet. I'm your host, Elias, and we're going to discuss all music-related things. And so the basic format's going to be every week we have some sort of main topic, whether it's a guest interview, news story. Today it's going to be an album review. And then once we're done with that, we might have some other topics to also go into. So before we get into it, let's introduce our lovely cast. So we have Liam to my left.
Hello.
We have Dante.
Yo, man, what's up?
Luke.
Yo.
Elijah.
present.
And on Discord, gang, we have Shane.
Yeah.
And Ian.
Yeah, yeet.
Right, sick. All right.
That's the perfect introduction for you. Yeah.
All right, cool. So firstly, let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to be reviewing the new album by Taylor Swift, of course, right?
It's amazing. It's an honest classic. Instant classic.
Let's get it. Let's just do a hard left turn. Let's just get after it.
Wait, is that not why we're here?
I thought that was the whole. I mean, that's the only reason why I came.
All right,
so.
I'm out.
Yeah.
All right, the Tool album, Fear Inoculum. What are our general thoughts? What did people think? I liked it. I thought it was good.
Brilliant.
Brilliant?
Okay.
Masterpiece.
Before we get into the heavy stuff.
Well, no, I just want to say, so I assume I'm probably the only person here who's not a fan of Tool.
Give it to us in like 5 words.
Well, no, I'm gonna give it to you in 5 words. I just want to make known that I'm not a.
You're not actually a fan of Tool.
I'm not a fan of Tool.
You never liked them or anything?
Not
dislike.
I didn't hate them, but I didn't dig them. You know.
Okay.
It didn't wash for me, but
For sure.
I'm gonna say for this album, I kind of liked it.
That's cool.
I kind of liked it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I kind of liked it. So.
And judging by other Tool albums, though, that you can range.
I mean, I never listened to a whole Tool album.
Actually, we have. Okay, yeah, we should clarify. Who here has listened to Tool's discography?
I have.
Yep.
Okay,
The majority of people other than me. So.
Okay. Okay.
My overall opinion of this Tool album, as well as I thought it was good. Obviously, it's going to be good. They spent a long time. I don't know if they spent all 13 years making this, but not my favorite Tool album. That's what my point is.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anyone here who did think this was their favorite album?
Mine.
No.
Ian?
Really?
It's mine. Yeah.
So out of the whole catalog, this is your favorite?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We can get back to that point. We can get back to that kind of area later.
No, let's dive in. Ian, why is it your favorite album?
Yeah, I'm interested.
Let's give us the
because it feels like this is the same as basically every album in one. There's one way that it's the same as every album. Every other album had more tracks, but if you look at the lengths of each album, they're basically the same. I don't know why this one. Because I feel like in every single song in this album, there's like a midway point where it shifts. Almost every song. There's a midway point where it shifts, and I feel like the record company literally could have just split the songs right there, gave it 2 different names, and half of the people who are mad at this album would be a lot happier.
Could you
just because there's more tracks.
I don't get why people would be mad. They should be mad.
Could you clarify what you mean by midway shift, like through each song? Like, what do you mean? Like, you feel like the tone of the song?
He meant the album. The album actually does kind of shift.
The album feels like no, not the album. Each track itself feels like it starts low, or it starts low, gets high, goes low again, gets high, goes low again, and then gets high at the end, and then either fades out or ends abruptly.
Actually, I kind of disagree, because I thought like the first track, the opening to it, I felt was like a film score. I felt like a really beautiful, just like something awesome was about to happen.
That's how I felt about most tracks. Yeah.
And like the beginning is like, bam, this is a great like hook. It gets you right in, and then all of a sudden,
it's one of my favorites.
And then all of a sudden, like it kind of goes through this kind of whatever kind of tone in the middle, and it's like, okay, whatever. But then the end parts are like really just like, and then it plays it real well towards the end. I always feel like the middles for these tracks are just always, it's either the middle sucks for me, in my opinion. I think not sucks. Okay, that's a strong word. this is not as great as the opening promised it would be. It's just two different tones, and it feels like disjointed a lot of times.
Okay, hold on. I kind of got sidetracked because you asked me why this is my favorite album, and I kind of talked about it, but didn't really.
Yeah.
I was talking about Time.
What's your favorite answer?
My favorite answer is I like that all songs are long.
Okay. He could go into more depth why it's his favorite. This is
like. I feel like I could do an activity while I love listening to the album as a whole. If I've got a lot of time, that's what I'm gonna do. But I feel like I could like pick one song and do an entire activity.
Because it
would just be that song.
I can kind of see that, but here's also one point I have for like one of the reasons why I honestly this wasn't my favorite, because Lateratus obviously is going to be my favorite album because I can literally listen to every song and not be mad. I can literally just be engaged with it. On other albums, I can be like, okay, I can skip this song for now. Or like I can be like, okay, I can move on to this one because I want to hear like, hell yeah. This album, I couldn't really feel with that. Of course, there's still great songs.
So hold on. Let me.
There's still
great. You're a huge fan of Fioptiopia?
Yeah, dude.
That song of just static at the end of Lateralis.
But
hey, it's more than static.
Obviously, the end song. Obviously, there's some songs that are literally 13 minutes long at the very end. Freaking like 10,000. I can't remember.
Well,
what
I
album
mean,
it is, but like
no Enema with Third Eye. You're probably
another reason I like this album is most of the transition tracks. I actually like them.
I'll agree. I really like because it was kind of like
it was like a break. It literally felt like a break.
Do you mean
like a mental break?
Do you mean the mushroom tracks? Like where it's like you gotta be high to listen to this shit?
Well, no,
absolutely.
To me,
that's the one thing I was kind of mad I wasn't in Amsterdam when this album came out. Is that oh my god, those on mushrooms would be absolutely insane.
I think. Are you referring to? I think I have it right here. It's Legion Inoculum.
Actually, I like that one a lot. That was my second favorite.
That
track.
was a very interesting track.
Is that the second track or the third track or the fifth track?
It's the one where he repeats "Bless this immunity."
Yeah,
he repeats it.
It has the same track from Fear Inoculum, his
song.
vocal track, and it just has a bunch of ambient sounds playing through.
I think I liked that one.
What I liked about it, it's like a palate cleanser. It's setting you up for the next song because you just heard this whole other like digestion of a track, and then you kind of you clean the slate, and then it prepares you for another thing. It's like a dish you're about to eat.
Tool does that.
I think we should hear.
Tool.
I think we should hear from Liam and then Eric next because I haven't heard.
We should get everyone's opinion on this.
So Liam, what do you?
So I want to come in here and say that
especially with this point.
So with Fear Inoculum as a whole, however, with particularly what Dante and Ian have brought up, I think that's the most important to focus on with this album. Because with me and with Fear Inoculum, like I like the other Tool records because between the mainstay tracks and the transition track / like the weird you gotta be high to listen to this shit kind of thing. Like I feel like with the other albums it's like way more cohesive and easier to just like digest as an experience. But I feel like with Fear Inoculum, like I didn't quite get it all the way through. Like I feel like the two transition tracks, Chocolate Chip Trip and Legion, like you guys were talking about, those two are really good.
On that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But
the drums on Chocolate Chip are so good.
They are really good. However, the other two transition tracks, I really did not get anything out of them. Like even during the first listen, I was like, oh, okay, this is it's doing its thing. It's coming after the other track, so it's like you get a moment to think about it. However, I like music. I like what Tool does, where they just have a meditative moment in the middle of the song. So with the other two. Yes, like with the other two transition tracks, I felt like they were just a little redundant because everything else was so long anyways. I was just like, I don't need this much of a breather from it, in my opinion. Like, that was my biggest gripe with the album.
Yeah, the first interlude I thought was super boring.
Exactly, yeah, I agree with that.
The second interlude I liked, and then the last track was just kind of what? Like
the last track's the one thing I do have a little bit of beef with. I do not understand it whatsoever.
Especially since you came off this awesome, really good track, and then all of a sudden you have this weird static track at the end.
I mean, it would have been cool, like in between songs, but like it doesn't work well as an outro. It feels like they just threw some random shit
Exactly.
together.
Yeah.
When I was smoking outside earlier and listening to it, I was trying to like somehow put some meaning to it, and I had something, and then I was just like, no, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, that's how you know it's like maybe I'm giving this too much credit. Yeah.
So Eric,
Yeah.
Eric,
That's the one. That's the one thing.
Eric, do you have any points on this specific topic or as the album in a whole?
It's Shane.
Oh, Shane. Sorry, I thought I heard Eric. Oh, Eric can't
Eric.
join.
Yeah,
Hey, what's up,
Eric was
Eric?
gonna be here, but
Eric
he-
couldn't join us. Sorry,
Wait, are we
Shane.
switching over to me now?
Yeah.
So,
I
Eric,
mean-
what are your thoughts?
I mean, I liked like there wasn't really a single there was never a single bad track on the album. I like what like the tracks have been sorted into like the ones I liked and the ones that are pretty meh.
yeah,
I
can agree
mean-
with that.
Yeah. At one point, I kind of felt like the tracks themselves, like, I mean, I like clearly they don't have to like segue into one another to be cohesive, but like, I felt like each track was just like a sudden individual epic.
I can kind of see that too.
Yeah, I agree with that. To
Like,
be
do you-
honest. Yeah.
Does anyone
Yeah.
think? Does anyone think they actually spent like a lot of time in between some of these songs? Because it may feel like that. It may to some people. It may not to some other people. I just want to know.
When you say time in between, you
like
mean
No.
they made like 3 songs, and they probably and like assuming they took like 2 years, and then they made some
honestly,
other songs.
I think that's a possibility because
Yeah.
all of them are now more like affluent
I
and
think-
doing their own thing,
Yeah.
especially Maynard.
Especially Maynard,
Yeah, like-
especially. But I just want to go around the table or around the Discord call and see if anyone thinks that, because I kind of felt like
I think
that.
calling voices was definitely written later. That's the one. I think that's the one track that I could identify as being written later than the other ones. But I think all the other ones shared at least some themes.
I mean, I don't know because I don't know the history behind this album because I didn't follow it very much. The only reason I even know of its existence because you guys were all like, "Oh, this album is coming out! It's coming out, guys!" You guys got
really
all
get
hyped.
hyped about it or anything like
Because
that?
I'm not a Tool fan.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so
But
it's
I mean,
like
like even right now, I think recently, like it's beating the Taylor Swift album.
It is.
The Taylor Swift album came out afterwards, like a week ago or something.
I think.
I
So.
think
don't
it
know.
came out before, like a
They
week
came out
before.
before.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, because wasn't Slipknot #1 and then Taylor Swift?
Yeah, Slipknot
Yeah.
came.
That's
It was
fucking
really
cool.
good. And then that's right. The Taylor Swift album came, and this is
I
still
am
beating
so
it.
proud of this community.
What's your opinion on that?
Oh,
On between like the lengths of song, do you agree with that or not?
it's kind of hard to say right now. I still want to go back to the album and like actually try to put a more cohesive idea behind it. But that's like kind of the thing with this album. It's like with the other 4 albums, I get a cohesive idea right away. With this album, like I feel like it's still setting in, like way slower than the other albums.
I actually wanted to go back to that cohesive idea thing you were talking about. I could argue that one album that they've made that was much less cohesive was Enema.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Enema was all over the place.
Anima.
Well, sure, but
Is it- I- that-
I
that
will
actually-
say-
Enema. And it would
I've heard
actually be
Enema.
no,
Is it Enema?
no. It would actually,
it's
the A and the
Circle,
E
Ian's
characters
pressing his
pronounced
glasses
together.
to his forehead.
no, but
This sounds so pretentious right now.
This letter is in the fucking Danish language. I know how it's pronounced.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dane. Oh,
This is why people make fun of Tool fans, guys.
It's A.
This is why I don't listen to it.
The A and the E together is pronounced as if you literally just say the letters at the same time. It's
Okay, that's nice.
so it'd be anima.
Okay, that's nice.
I'm glad we got that sorted out.
Well, I think the main thing I would say is I compare Tool a lot of times to Terrence Malick. If you don't know who Terrence Malick is, he directed films like Tree of Life and New World, and
Okay, I know New World.
so films that are like.
Still none of that's.
Okay, how about you fucking let me talk? So just
Let him finish this point.
I let you talk for like practically a whole 30
We
minutes.
don't
so-
need to let him finish.
All right.
Let's just let-
Okay, so
Don't
it's-
derail.
So the main thing is Terrence Malick. He oftentimes shoots like a 10-hour movie. He'll shoot that much footage, and they'll trim it down to 3 hours, and those 3 hours feel really long and disjointed. And that's how I feel a lot of times with this album is it feels like they could have got an editor and chopped down maybe half the songs.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. Like every song in here that was greater than 10 minutes could have been cut down by at least 3 or 4 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I was like, it just because if it was 3 or 10 minutes of like everything was really awesome, that'd be awesome.
Except Tempest. I listened
Yeah,
to that.
exactly. I was gonna say that.
That's the only track I left alone.
Well, but also
But
because
my thing, sorry, my main thing with Tempest is that track should have came earlier. I shouldn't have to wait that long for that good of a track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it felt like the entire album was building up to Tempest, and that was like why it was at the end.
I could argue for Invincible being just as good as a track.
Here's a point that's kind of like addressing everything that you guys have said about Tool so far. Is a common pattern with Tool that you can actually see through almost all of their albums is each of their songs is kind of an experience in itself. There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end, which always calls for, I guess, can justify the length of each song, usually them being around like 10 minutes. But, you know, someone made a point that like the middle chunks of most of these songs, they felt like they kind of dipped in quality. And then, of course, the ending, at least in my opinion, I thought the endings to most of these songs were pretty decent. Some of them were really good. Some of them were kind of like, okay, yeah, that was a Tool song. That was okay.
I actually have something to say there because I actually think that maybe this album's greatest weakness, when you bring that up, when I think about it, is that there could have been a moment where it could have been like on Lateralis, like Parable to Parabola, like two tracks that are like obviously related, but like they didn't do anything like that. Like they didn't like try to bring up like an idea and like play it like they did on Parable to Parabola. They just kind of,
to be fair,
presented every idea and went straight to
the whole
it.
album was based off of that idea, though.
Really?
Like for instance, like I want to finish these points, but I feel like their whole premise of the album.
Don't rush this.
Yeah. But anyway, what was were you continuing with your point though?
I was gonna let him.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, then, can
I just like Lateralis. Sorry.
I do too. We can make next episode of Lateralis.
Can I
go
talk
ahead,
about something you guys said that it died off in the middle, and I don't really understand where you're coming from there, because I felt like every single time I was listening to a song, and then I most of the time when I heard a part that I really liked, and I went down to look at what part of the song it was at, it was almost always in the middle.
The middle was my least favorite.
8 minutes. 8 minutes.
Yeah,
7 minutes. 9 minutes.
I noticed the opposite, because I would be driving and listening to this album, and every time that I turned to my phone and was like, all right, this song's getting kind of boring, it was like right at the 5-minute mark every time.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
I think my main issue with this album is it felt like kind of a chore.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it was like I was listening to it, I'm like, okay.
I would have said.
And then also my least favorite part was the guitar. Like I thought.
Interesting.
I thought
that was one of my.
I'll agree with that. I think Adam Jones has phoned it in.
Yeah,
I think Adam Jones.
There's some solos that was like, hold on.
No, seriously.
No, to be honest, wait a minute.
He can do better than this album.
Divided the
He can do
table.
better than
This
this album.
divided the call so much. This divided the call.
Okay, I see Liam's on my side. Who's on my side on this?
I don't think.
Elias is like kind of on my side.
I'm
Elias
kind
is
of on
playing
your
Switch
side.
Over right now.
Danny carries the
Hey, I have to be the moderator host, okay?
Yeah, he does.
But I thought, in Descending, for example, like the guitar effects in that are what make the song.
Descending, the guitar in there is very strong. I will
Yes.
agree.
There were some parts, like basically the way I look at this album is like if you're looking for an album like Lateralis, which had like a lot of energy and like exciting songs and stuff like that, like I feel like in order to fully really enjoy this album, I had to look at it from a different mindset of like, this is just kind of music to like, not completely tune out, but just kind of like let it gel in your head for a little bit, maybe go for a drive or something.
Yeah.
That was kind of how I felt.
I thought like the Legion Inoculate made me feel like it was like a Steve Vai track. Like it had that virtuoso feel, and I feel like, okay, that was when the guitar was really at its peak. And I'm like, where the fuck was this for the rest of the album?
That really is where I'm coming from too.
And I'm like, where was this for the rest of the album? Because every track, every riff sounded like it was the same 3 chords, like over and over again.
Or it was just like chugging along like a gent album.
It didn't really like the drums was the driving part of it. The bass was the driving part.
Probably wanted
the guitar didn't feel like that way at all. It felt like feel like I was listening to like a robot make music. To be honest, a lot of times.
Here's something to kind of address what you're saying. So you mentioned Steve Vai. You know Steve Vai.
Yeah.
Incredible guitarist, virtuoso. Tool, I would say, and most Tool fans could agree, is what Tool is very well known for, is they're very solid together. Like as I don't think there is one person that outshines anyone else in that band. All of them are just very good musicians, and they just sound really well together. Each, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
It's all good. Ian was trying to spark up something.
Go ahead.
What I was trying to say is that in different songs they focus on different instruments. If they focus at all, some songs are just like every instrument is basically doing the same thing, including the vocals. The vocals are always treated as an instrument in Tool. And I don't know if everyone knows this. The way Tool writes their songs is they write, record, and partially mix the entire instrumental, and then Maynard starts writing the lyrics.
Okay.
So if Maynard hears the song before any lyrics are thought of or anything.
So they have their own creative process.
It's the entire band. He waits for everything to be together before he can basically add the last piece. They're pieces to a whole.
I remember my point. You were saying how you felt like the guitar felt lackluster in certain parts.
Yeah.
That could be true, but I would urge that the perspective when you're listening to a Tool album be, how do they all sound together? Because I think that's what they're trying to go for. I don't think they ever try to have a moment where it's like, fuck yeah, the guitarist is going ham right now. Everyone else is kind of toned down. Like everyone's
I wasn't expecting
that happened.
I wasn't expecting
that happened with the drums a couple times.
It did, but that's the moment. The drums.
Because Danny Carey's just fucking crazy.
I think the drums really outshined everybody, really, because like as a whole.
No, the bass was insane. This
well, actually,
the bass. Where was the bass this whole time?
The bass was good, but it wasn't good as the drum track. But what I was trying to say was
the bass drove most of the songs.
I disagree with that completely.
I didn't even notice the bass like at all.
Exactly.
What the hell? It was
the bass is everything that I noticed.
It was either Fear Inoculum or Pneuma. I think they had like a bass riff in the very beginning, and it was very strong. But I will have to say and agree with you guys that there wasn't ever any other noticeable part in the album where it was like, yeah, the bass is kind of outshining right now. It's the driving force. I didn't have that thought.
To me, the drums was the driving force, and to me, to be honest, like I was saying, like as a whole, I felt, like I said, like it felt like a robot making music. It felt very monotonous. It felt very repetitive.
Yeah, they definitely borrowed a lot from their other albums. They made it sound like a Tool album, so I can see how you...
Yeah, to me, I was like, I don't have that expectancy of, 13 years, can't wait. So I'm listening as a person who's like, just, okay, what's this?
Right, yeah. It's a different perspective.
Okay, so what...
But again, you haven't listened to the other albums.
I don't have to. But I
shut up.
Hang on, before we continue, someone just joined the call. My friend Richard, what's up? You here?
What is up, my dude?
Yo.
He joined a very heated part of the table.
Okay, joined the war table. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did.
I just kind of joined in and then got ear raped. That was great.
Can we talk about how awesome Tempest is? Oh boy!
Yeah, let's just talk about that for a few
what's
minutes.
Kind of weird?
Yeah.
I think I've only listened to Tempest once or twice, and I can't recall much about it. So maybe we could pull that.
That's when Maynard's vocals are the most aggressive, like flat out. Like,
oh yeah,
the
vocal hooks are.
I've just been listening to this like on my way to and back from work.
Oh,
because 4 or 5 tracks.
Then okay.
But I think when it gets around to Tempest, I've only hit it like once or twice. Cause
you have to sit down and like focus on that track because it starts off very intense and then it slows down, unlike the other tracks in the album. It actually starts out pretty energetic and then slows down and then speeds back up.
For sure, yeah.
Kind of thing.
Okay, so now we're going to take a quick break and listen to the song Tempest, just to get it fresh in our minds. So we're going to pause the recording and come back.
No one needs time.
All right, damn. Best song, right?
That was pretty good.
I will have to agree.
Pretty dope.
I think that was the first time I listened to it and I was really paying attention to like what was being said and the instrumental prowess of the Tool.
Right to that. This is what I wish was the opening track. Like combine the intro from the opening track and this together, I think it would have been like a beautiful combination that would have hooked me like even deeper into the album. And I think it would have made me like because I said was earlier, like I was saying earlier, it felt like a chore listening to. I think if that was the opening track, I felt like, okay, not so much of a chore to get to this one good track, rather than that was a great track. okay, the rest is okay, but I still love that first great track. So if you hook me in easier, I think would have been. I think I would.
That track also. The lyrics were cohesive enough to understand the message, or at least, everyone's gonna have a different interpretation of the message of that song. But the message, it sounds like I wrote a bunch of notes, but it sounds like it's talking about how, from the perspective of someone who thinks that people can't change or people can't become something else. Like, oh, you've done this, you're a sinner, you've caused this over and over. There's no way, there's no hope for you. You're gonna be like this for the rest of your life. And I think that's a really cool thing to include at like maybe the beginning of an album, where the lyrics and the message of a song is very cohesive as well. Fear Inoculum, like as a beginning track, I think that song is about like accepting fear or something. Like it's about like you're gonna be fearful, accept it so you can get over it. But even then, like it wasn't that. Like it took a while to think. It was kind of easy to understand the song.
Yeah, well, not even just easy. It was also just easy to like.
Be engaged in the entire way.
Yeah.
And also, like, this song is long, but I don't feel the length.
That's like 15 minutes.
That's 15
minutes.
minutes.
The longest song on the album, but it doesn't feel like it.
It feels like 5 minutes. And I'm like, but it feels like a beautiful 5 minutes that I enjoy. But then you realize, oh shit, that was 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's Tool as it should be. That's classic Tool.
And then that opening track, I was like, this is too long for an opening track.
Every song that's not Tempest.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I love about this one the most is like it starts off as this beautiful like stargazing kind of fairy tale journey, like
almost sitar-esque.
It's sitar, but also it's like Legend of Zelda, like the opening of Legend of Zelda is very beautiful, it's very lush, and then you take the sword out of the thing and it's like, welcome to hell!
It's like, here's Ganon, bitch. You're going on this
and
adventure.
they're going on this fucking journey. It's like the riverboat ride in Charlie Chocolate Factory's Prince of the Inferno, or it's like it started off of it. It's look at this chocolate factory. Now you're in hell. Welcome to my riverboat ride, bitch. and then it bookends it towards the end with that same kind of opening riff where it feels like the Exorcist kind of fairy tale, kind of feeling. It has that thing where it bookends it, and you feel like you completed the journey, the hero's journey, and it feels just so whole. And the little I don't know what it is. Like, I guess the bell or the guitar at the end where it's like
that percussive thing.
Yeah, the percussive, and it feels like it's the end of the journey. It's beautiful. Too bad that track at the end comes right after it.
Yeah, it brings nothing to the table.
No,
unfortunately.
I think again, touching back on lyrics, from the intro of the song, it's talking about like that whole build up where apparently he's saying keep calm, and at the very end when the heaviness kicks in, where shit hits the fan, he says, "Fuck, here we go again." Yeah. I think that personifies very well, or describes the transition from that very beautiful intro between like it's very light on the guitar and very light and percussive. I don't even know what that instrument is that like the percussionist is using, but it sounds really nice.
Yeah.
And it sounds really nice in between the guitar and that. And then as soon as he says "fuck, here we go again," guitar gets really heavy, the drums go ham, and it's telling a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It's beautiful. Elias, what's your? I want to know your.
Yeah,
thoughts.
what's your take on it?
I just can't stop thinking about the gent breakdown right in the middle. Holy shit!
But like it's done correctly too. Like
yes.
Like I feel like with the other tracks when it starts like slowing down and going like dun 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 dun, but like it's not complete. It's not like literal gent. Like Adam Jones is still doing his Adam Jones thing during it, but it still feels like it's just kind of going through the motions. At least with Tempest, like. When it's still being heavy, but like it's like slowing down like that, like you feel like you have a reason to it. Part of it is the lyrics, but I also feel like part of it is just the pacing of the song. Like it just it comes in at the right time.
Yeah,
and props to the percussionist for laying it down the entire time.
Oh yeah,
the entire song
performance.
Yeah.
The percussion, the bass, like you were saying earlier, like, as a team, they're together as a team.
They're very
strong. This is this track that I feel like was as the team really pushed it forward.
It shows how great they sound together.
Yeah.
And there isn't a moment where I felt like one person outshined the other. It just felt like that's Tool.
It just felt like as a whole, like look at what we could do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
And bringing back to the point that was made earlier about like I even asked like what point the song is this because I just wanted to realize. Like, there wasn't one point, like, in other songs where you're at the middle of it, you're like, okay, there wasn't one point of that in that song. And, like I said, a 15-minute song literally felt like a 5-minute song.
Yeah.
Like, that is a feat within itself, know? And like that's probably why it will be the best song on this album. I don't think it will change for the next couple times I do listen to this album. That probably won't change.
Was this the single for this album? Or?
No.
Oh, it should have been. It should have been.
The single was Fear Inoculum, right?
Yeah.
Really?
That one came out like a week before.
But if you put out the best song on the album as a single, then like it's
It would have sold better, man.
Well,
Well, it already sold pretty well.
I mean, it's already starting really well because of all the fans who are like, yeah, fine. It's like Half-Life 3. If Half-Life 3 came out, it would be the biggest game of all time.
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind, I actually didn't listen to Tool before like two years ago, and I didn't even like really know about that. So people that
It was like
work
2015, though, wasn't it?
okay, well 2015,
Yeah.
but like but I was still musically inclined, and to be like, oh, like I'm gonna listen to this whole thing.
But
So
you
for
caught up
people-
to the whole Tool era.
exactly for people that are new and experiencing it, I think definitely they will just drive into that more. Wait, offline usage. All right, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
did I ever tell you that my friends actually went to college with a guitar player?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was well, not dorm mates, but like they had the same classes together. So.
What college was that?
Chicago, I forgot what fucking. Chicago. So you know Matt, right?
Matt.
The dude that looks like me with long hair.
Maybe. Yeah. Why?
Well, he went to college with him, so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wait.
Yeah, I know a bunch of people who know Avenged Sevenfold just because they were like in Huntington Beach, and they went to I think they went to
It's
either
local.
Newport Harbor
Went to
or
Huntington
Edison
Beach
or one of those.
School.
What was that? Huntington Beach High School?
Yeah, they went to Huntington Beach High School. One of my old guitar teachers through MMET went to high school with them.
Nice.
I've seen the twins from Garden like 4 times. Like
Wait, who's it?
the Garden, the band The Garden.
I don't know.
It's not the biggest band ever, but like they went to Clam Fognaw and like shit like that, and you could just see them like, oh, here's.
Oh, how was that? I was gonna go to that fest.
Oh, I didn't go to this year.
Oh, you didn't go?
No. I did not have money for that or
Yeah.
time. But you know,
Well,
unless I want to
Tempest-
get elbowed again, I'm.
Tempest was good. I like
Tempest was
very
beautiful.
good.
Yeah, that actually I think what made me feel like I kind of liked the album was like that track was like made it for me. I mean, there was other tracks that I liked, but but this was definitely the one that was like, yeah, this is definitely a solid song. This definitely makes me feel like why I say I can't hate Tool. It's not my kind of style of music, but this is this track. I'm like, yeah, they're good musicians. Yeah.
Did you guys see the article that was posted where I think it was Maynard? He said that like because they've been working on this album the whole time that the hiatus has been happening.
Really? So
Yeah, and so well, sort of. But Maynard said like 8 years ago the album already sounded good, and so I'm wondering.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
they've been holding on to this since 2011.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
that's what makes me wonder because he was very vague about it. I'm wondering like what songs were done, what songs were changed, that sort of thing. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if like this, because they were second guessing themselves, and that's why it took so
Wait,
long.
did they have Final Cut on this, or
What do you mean?
like did they like so? Final Cut usually means like the band has the artistic say of what the final product.
Oh,
is.
I would imagine so. Yeah, I'm not
Like
sure.
so it wasn't like studio came in and was like, oh, change some of this around.
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm wondering like which songs,
Were the most recent? Which ones were the
yeah,
ones
that
were
sort
kind
of
like,
thing.
already completed. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I suppose that's something we really won't ever know. Only
Yeah.
kind of just determined by how they sound.
Mhm.
But even then, that's not too much to go off of.
Like just how people want the Snyder cut of Justice League. That's like we want the Tool cut for the fucking album.
Right. I also wonder if like the fact that they were like second guessing themselves so much, maybe if they had some of the same criticisms that we brought up of like a lot of the songs being too long or whatever, or maybe if it was the opposite, maybe the songs were shorter and they thought they needed to be longer. I don't know.
Maybe because I actually don't know whose labels on this.
Whose label?
Mm-hmm. Did they literally record this and produce this themselves? Because they do need someone to ship it, and so essentially what I was thinking is, I don't know if it's like, hey, you need to keep up with the times. You do need to actually release your music online to actually produce this.
Why?
More sales, because it wasn't even on iTunes.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
Well, the
trying to say.
iTunes thing. I mean, I think it was kind of like they did that at the beginning of the month to promote the album, right?
Of course, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is like for like production
RCA
companies, label
Records.
companies to actually. Okay, they're actually really cool. That makes sense. They're a pretty cool company. So I'm trying to think. It's like
I'm trying to
back
say,
then-
did they get Final Cut on this? Because I just
RCA, usually they have a lot of artists do free will a lot, but also at the same time, back then it was really controlling. I can't say for it now because I know like Voids, they do RCA and they're totally indie, you know, and like, but also RCA releases stuff in Japan, you know, and they also, that's totally strict. So I don't know if it's totally free-formed, but I know they are a really good label. They're one of the better labels.
I feel like if you're established, you will get more say. Because a lot of labels now will have like more say on what you do and what you think and things like that. Like even
Universal.
Like I was listening to Snoop Dogg, he was talking about like rappers now, like newer rappers, if they want to go to the club after a show, they have to pay like a fee just to go to the club. They have to do all these other things just to live their lives and do these things to promote their image. So it's, you know, the label's controlling every little aspect. But if you're more like, say, Snoop Dogg or say like Tool, I feel like maybe it's not so much because, you know, like,
A lot of years.
yeah, it's like they got clout behind them. They got followers. It's like, you know, when Quentin left the Weinstein Company and went to make Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he told Sony, like, I get Final Cut in this movie. And everyone was like, yeah, you're fucking Quentin Tarantino, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I feel like with maybe the Tool, they definitely probably had more Final Cut on this. So.
And probably, and you know what? Even then, like you saying that, probably the production company wanted hands-on on it, you know, and then Tool, knowing that they wanted this album to be perfect, they would go to label. The label producer will produce it, mix it however they like, and then like, no, we don't want that. Move on. You know?
Yeah.
Then 5 years later, then it goes to the 8-year mark, where it's like, oh, it's sounding good, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, the label wants you to release it on iTunes. We don't want that, right?
Yeah.
So there probably could have been pulling aspects that entire time.
Yeah.
And like I said, it brings me back to the point. It's like, were all these songs made on the same like time? Like, I don't know.
Well, actually, I will chime in there and say that one thing I have heard is that the riff for Tempest actually has been has been written for a long time, like ever since 1996 or 1997, like around the time Enema came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, actually, Adam Jones had that riff since like 1996, and he never figured out a way to like
Implement it.
implement it really well until now. So it maybe also could be a matter of like, we have so much of this stuff we've been sitting on for like 20 years now, like
How
how are you even going to get it all like
Yeah.
into a great experience? Like that can be really, that's probably the most difficult thing you could do in
It's
music.
really
like,
challenging.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this album has been like kind of like an under the hood experience, like from the last 20 years of like their writing just kind of coming about in its own way.
Well, it paid off pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say
I
it paid
mean-
off well enough.
I mean, especially financially. So.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just like our opinions of how we feel, because basically critics and fans alike have all pretty much priced it on the same level. Because like every review I read about in any magazine or online website, it's always like 7 star, like 7 out of 7 or 10 out of 10. And then
For this album?
yeah, that's what I've seen. Like every time I was trying to like look up, see other people's points and reviews, and like, well, not YouTubers, but let's say like the music critics, the ones who are like get paid.
Yeah, because the only one I'm familiar with is Pitchfork, and they gave it like a 5.
They gave it a bad.
Yeah,
Pitchfork is
and-
a reputable-
And then Fantano also gave it a negative
Well,
review.
what's the reviews on other stuff? They're probably harsher than St. Louis critics, so.
That's
Actually,
true.
yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, I think.
Which is like that's why like I always liked Roger Ebert versus every other reviewer, or Pauline Kael, because anytime a movie came out that a lot of people loved, they were like, I didn't like this film.
Yeah.
Like Pauline Kael said, I didn't like the Sound of Music. I thought it was kind of bad.
Damn.
So.
And that's like a classic now.
Yeah, no, it's praised. I mean, it was praised at the time. It was one of the highest grossing films of that time, and then still to this day, people come back to it. You know, I saw the stage production; it was completely sold out. It's like so, but Pauline Kael at the time, who respectable film critic, and she was just like, I don't know, guys, I don't know how to feel about this.
Does she still feel that way?
I mean, she's dead now.
Oh, I didn't
Some
know.
musicians-
I've never heard.
Well,
that
I
person.
mean, some reviews have changed things like that. Like Roger Ebert at the time said he didn't like The Big Lebowski, but now he looks back and is like, I was wrong. I was wrong. It's a phenomenal film. So
Yeah. Sometimes you need other perspectives to sort of contextualize certain things.
yeah, which is why I hate when people say, "Oh, I hate critics." I'm like,
Actually, I will chime in on your Roger Ebert point as well, because I feel like that example with the Big Lebowski, like that movie is like a sensory overload, like right away. Like, that's the really tricky part about like criticizing art in general. Is like if it tries to make something evocative right away, then like your initial opinion is probably going to be a little, like, either just, like, relatively exaggerated or just going to come off, like, really confused. Like, I feel like there's some art that's just very difficult to criticize, and with Fear Inoculum, I don't know. However, I definitely feel like some of the tracks on Fear Inoculum, like, that are in the middle, are, like, kind of, like, the opposite of that. Like, they don't try to be evocative, but at the same time, it's Tool doing something a little bit, I guess you could say, more boring on the surface, but I do think there is something there to it that, like, is worth delving into. It's just that, like, it's not like a film where you can just say, like, oh, that character did that. Like, no, you have to look at the song as an experience. Like, you can't do that with other art forms.
Well, I mean, you can do that with film, but particularly for music, you really have to really dive in. You really have to.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I only listened to the album only a couple times, so I think I really have to really to see it even further. I think I would have to, like, give it a few more listens. It's just the problem is there's nothing about it that makes me want to pull in and listen to it more. It's like when there's certain movies I'll watch multiple times to get multiple meanings. Like when first time I saw Get Out, I wanted to watch it like 3 more times to really get it, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And there's even albums I do that with, but for this I was like, it just felt every time I listened to it more, I was like, okay, I'm getting some of it, but it feels like a chore. Other than
Tempest. I was definitely feeling that way at points too. Although like here and there, like probably like 5 times total in the album, like there's like half the track, like between the transition tracks and like maybe 2 or 3 of the mainstay tracks, like I do feel like it was meandering too much. But other than that, like, it is kind of weird to think about because I just love every other Tool release like before this so much. So it's also like, I guess I'm kind of having a hard time digesting certain parts of it because it just feels underwhelming at first, but I also feel like I'm missing something.
Here's a question. If this album came out maybe like, the most recent one was 10,000 Days before this one?
Oh, 6, yeah.
Yeah. How would you feel about this album if it came out, say, like a year or 2 later? Like around that same time where, you know, the Tool train was still very strong. I mean, it's not like it died out too hard. It's just, since then, a lot of different music has come out. Opinions about, like, what's popular has definitely changed. So that could affect maybe your opinion or your feelings about this album just because it's been, like, 13 years since the last one. How would you feel if this album came out, say, not too long since 10,000 Days?
I think it would be a little easier to say, like, I think it would be a little easier to compare it to other Tool releases because if it did come out within 2 or 3 years of 10,000 Days, it probably, frankly, the production probably would have been better. Like, I still agree with Dante's point wholly that there are points where it does feel like a robot completely, especially with the guitar work on this album. I feel like it would have been produced better, actually, if it came out, like, 3 or 4 years after the fact of 10,000 Days.
However, that is really for everyone.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I think compositionally it makes more sense as like a continuation of 10,000 Days because if you notice, like Lateralis was kind of that perfect blend of like prog and alternative rock and like energy and that sort of thing, and then 10,000 Days was a little bit more like relaxed and introspective, and I think this album takes that even further. And so I think so I think if it had come out right after 10,000 Days, it would like, to me, it would just like make a little bit more sense, and maybe I wouldn't have been as initially like kind of thrown off.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that as well.
Even though most of the reviews have been positive for what I've seen as well, on Dante's point, there are some people that like coming from different genres, especially now today, because look how even just alternative has changed. Every drum set has going to be electronic drum set or something, or always synthesizer, or keyboard, stuff like that. And bring it back to your point, like, at the time, alternative and, like, kind of rockish, they blended it and made it perfect in Lateralis. Having that gap of time, music does kind of change within, like, the music instruments and the music, how you do adapt to that. You know, like, alternative always has synths and electronic beats now behind it. You know, always. It's pretty much every alternative band's going to really have that. You know, even the alternative bands that didn't have that now have that. Like, Silver Sun Pickup's new album was all about that. They never really had that before. They had a keyboard player, but, like, the electronic drums on some parts were just like, oh, this is now they're copying alternative bands now. You know, it's like they kind of defrayed.
Well, I actually kind of like the electronic parts. But then again,
but that's my point. It's like we kind of are listening to it now, so we're accepting it. Oh, like I'm getting it. For some people that are not super into Tool or that are on the fence about Tool and that are listening to today's music a lot, they're not going to be as gripped as much as I think.
Right.
You know, because
That's a fair point.
because music is a little more different now. You know, even though it's the same format, it's just a little different now.
It's very different. Well, nowadays it's sort of like a blend of it. Everything's blending together. It's just like there's no like definitive like, oh, this is one genre, that's one genre. They're all separate. Like country music is combining rap and other, you know.
They always have like almost a trap beat now. Too.
Yeah, it's not there's nothing traditional anymore. Which is, depending on your viewpoint on life, it could be a good or a bad thing.
And then imagine like if Johnny Cash was still alive, he released a country album and it didn't have trap beats and stuff like that behind it.
Yeah.
Some newer people are gonna be like, I'm not gonna listen to it.
Yeah.
You know, or like, it's good. If somebody likes it, I'm not gonna be really engaged into it.
Yeah, but to get back to Luke's point, I think like you were asking me if it was released on 2 years. The thing is, I don't have that attachment.
It's a bit different for you. Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I mean, because I didn't know Tool at the time when around like 2006. I was like, what, like 12? I was the only thing I was listening to was like
Kids Bop.
No, I was listening like AC/DC. That's what my first concert was AC/DC Black Ice. So I was like, I was just getting into rock and roll. I wasn't really like. If you told me a band called Tool, I was like, that's a weird name for a band. Now I'm older. I'm like, it's actually a pretty artistic name. But now, like, I had no attachment. I had none of that. So I had no like expectations going in. I came with a clean slate. Other than like, I don't like Tool very much.
Right.
But I'll give this a try.
Yeah.
And
some parts worked out.
And I like, if I were to give this like an overall rating, I would say I'd give it a 7.
7?
Fair.
A 7 or a 6.
Isn't that like that's like a general rating?
That is a general.
I think so.
It's like it's good, but I feel like it could have hit harder.
It doesn't have you by the balls.
Yeah.
It felt like it kind of felt like a light makeout session, and it gave me a little bit blue balls.
All right, I guess we'll go home now.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it felt. I was like, I guess go home now. Especially with that last bit. Oh my god.
Yeah, for me it's like a 7.5. But if the songs were shorter, like I mentioned, it would be like an 8 probably, or maybe a little bit higher than an 8.
Discord gang, chime in.
Yeah, wait, Discord gang. What's your opinion on that?
Richard.
I think we lost them.
Well, we definitely lost Shane. He said he was tired, so we had to go.
Okay.
Richard.
Rich, my dude. Where is he? Oh well. All right. Anyway.
Anyways.
What was Liam's rating?
Well, I'm just trying to collect my thoughts after that conversation because I was still thinking about that point I was making about like being critical. Although I do agree with your score overall, I'd definitely give this album like a 7. Just something in that range. Like it isn't for like listening to an album, it isn't above average experience. But like I know every Tool release before this, like it was relatively disappointing to me. Mm-hmm. I think the things that made it relatively disappointing really were the fact that the two duds of the transition tracks that just were completely boring, and the fact that at least 3 or 4 of the mainstay songs, in my opinion, could have been cut down at least by 2 to 3 minutes each.
Yeah.
Fear Inoculum, I actually am still unsure of if it could have been cut down because the spaciness of the intro plus where it gets meditative does kind of make me wonder. You might need all of this just to get like a good sense of like what the song means. However, I also think that between that and the other tracks that are about 10 to 12 minutes long, between that, Invincible, Calling Voices, I think that the meditative moments were just a little bit too drawn out, and I think that like it definitely should have hit harder. However, I also think there should have been more opportunity to solo. I don't just mean like Adam Jones should have gone harder. I mean like I wanted something on the level of like I was expecting something on the level of like the drum solo from 46 and 2 on that album.
Yeah.
I never got that on this album. Like I feel like that's the most disappointing thing to me personally.
Yeah.
Like there was just nothing where it was like, wow, it like with the 46 and 2 example, like that drum solo is like tribal. Like it's like an energy that like no other Tool song replicates. But like all of this is by the numbers.
Yeah.
It's
Except for
being
the chocolate trip.
Chocolate chip
we
trip,
didn't
yes,
talk
is a
about that
very
yet.
interesting.
I was gonna say that was kind of like on par with like Moby Dick and Rat Salad. Which if you don't know what that is, Rat Salad is like Black Sabbath's Moby Dick, and Moby Dick is a drum solo by John Bottom from Led Zeppelin, and where he's
John
just
Bonham.
going ham on the fucking drums.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that comparison. That's really good.
I am going to go a little harder on this one. I am. It's still not like it's. If I could do points like blank point, it would be like a 6.7, just because of the fact there are songs on here I could be like, okay, skip.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to this one.
Honestly, I
Yeah.
wanted to skip a lot of songs, and I was like, no, let me give a fair review.
And that's
Yeah.
the reason. That's the reason why I was going to put it at like a 6.5, but that is too low. I'm going to do it like a 6.7, 6.8, just because of the fact there are songs where I can be like, I can tune out to this. This is awesome. I love this. And then at other times I'm like, skip. And the last song is atrocious. We can all agree on that.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
as like a fan of like noise and shit like that, like I think the sound design aspect of that last song is cool. It just didn't fit on this album.
I just,
No,
it
it didn't
just,
fit at all,
it just,
yeah.
I'm a Wall of Noise fan. Like,
I just feel like because you had this opening, it doesn't bookend at all. It doesn't fit with the rest of the tone. It doesn't fit with anything really. It just it feels like we have this extra track. What should we do with it?
Yeah.
I guess put it on the last part of the album.
They probably could have just cut it out and then swapped the last one with Legion Inoculum. Like,
Yeah.
Legion Inoculum, I feel like, is just some weird, trippy version of Fear Inoculum.
Yeah.
Like, without, like, it's the noise version of it. But
Yeah.
you can close with that. Like, that would have been fine.
or cut some of the meditative parts and just mesh them all into one meditative state at the very end.
Yeah.
That actually would have been better too. Yeah, I completely agree with
And
that.
yeah,
But their creative process is their creative process. It's their own thing.
Yeah.
But
final score for me, because I didn't decide, 6.8, just because of the fact other albums I can sit through it all and like be like, okay, this album I really good.
I'll go with a very similar score. I'd say, like, anywhere between a 7 and an 8, somewhere around there.
I feel like we were like
Seven,
in unison about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even though we all have different points, I feel like it's we kind of feel the same. It's like solid.
It's not.
Maynard, 10.
Maynard's like 100 out of 100.
But that's fine. Like, honestly, he's told me so much about how he loves this album, and that's great, because Maynard's actually, like, a Tool fan.
Yeah,
It's like what you would... He saw Tool recently, like, I think,
And
like a year and a half ago,
yeah,
2
and
years
like
ago. or
he's
something.
tried to see him every time. Like
Yeah.
that's his thing.
So he's
There's one
very much
point
dedicated.
he made. I don't. He was saying like I could do other things listening to this album. To me, when I listen to an album, I gotta sit down and give it my full attention. I can't
Yeah,
just, like,
same here.
If
Yeah.
if I'm doing other things and playing particular songs, that's a playlist in my mind, not an album.
Yeah, for sure.
When I listen to an album, because I grew up with like vinyl and tape, so when you came home from the record store, you sat down
You
in
listened
front
to
of
the whole
the
thing
record
in one
player
sitting.
and listened to it front again. You didn't say anything, you didn't do other things. You sat down, and if I was gonna sit down and listen to this whole album, I'd be like, which I did, by the way. I lied down, like lit candles, and it was like, man, cut half these songs out already.
Well, when you say like doing things while listening to the album, like that can mean a lot of different things too,
That's true.
right?
He wasn't really
True.
specific.
Yeah, he was-
Yeah,
So-
because like I think going on a walk while listening to an album is a lot more appropriate than like playing football while listening to
Or
it.
like doing chores and like no.
Holy
yeah.
shit! I'd bike with that last
Oh,
song.
he's back.
All right, so we're doing final almost ratings on there. Out of this whole album, what rating would you give it?
I think I'm pretty much in agreement with you guys. Probably somewhere around the 7 out of 10 or 8 out
For
of
sure,
10.
yeah.
Do you have more to add to that? It was just same points and everything.
Yeah, it's just pretty much the same points. The favorite tracks are probably much the same as you guys. Fear, Inoculum, and Tempest.
Yeah.
So we can all agree that the hour and 26 minutes literally could have been cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for
It
10
could have been
songs.
shaved down just a little bit.
Like,
I think so.
Not as short as like
Who
40.
was the
like-
producer on this album?
I think it
Uh,
was probably...
I think the members don't they produce?
I think it was just Maynard.
Yeah, well, it has different mixing and mastering people.
Well,
It just
like,
says
you know,
Tool
like Rick
production.
Rubin-
Produced by Joe Barresi?
Yeah, he was the mixing and
Oh yeah,
recording
I was
engineer.
looking at that. I was looking at that guy. He does a shit ton of stuff for Queens of the Stone Age and Kios too.
That's really cool.
Oh,
He has
nice.
A7X as well.
What's his name again?
Joe Barresi.
Evil
and
Joe
that's what
Barrett.
also I was wondering, like
Or
earlier,
Barresi.
it was like, did they switch producers? Like, did they not, like at certain points, like, I don't want you to do this song.
Right.
Like, I don't know. That's some time between the 12 years that we haven't seen, or 13 years. that we
Oh,
haven't
this
seen.
guy does like a lot of new metal stuff.
Yeah.
Slipknot.
Yeah, it had like a new metal, like early 2000s new metal vibe for a lot of the guitar tones, especially in Tempest.
I dig it. Actually.
Oh, no, I dug it.
I grew up
Like-
with a lot of new metal.
Like, no, yeah, same. Like, a lot of people are gonna hate me for this, and it's probably gonna void my opinion, but huge guilty pleasure of mine is Limp Bizkit.
Oh yeah, same here. Same here.
Yeah!
I will be the first to
my
admit
fucking
that.
chainsaw!
You can like Limp
Mike,
Bizkit,
what?
as long as it's a guilty pleasure.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, but okay, you gotta admit that first album slams.
Oh yeah, it's
It
great.
fucking slams.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Regardless of your opinion of Limp Bizkit, that first album fucking slams. That's a great debut album.
My coworker literally in 2 days is saying Papa Roach.
Oh,
Yeah, that's where I gotta disagree.
That's what I couldn't. That's not. I couldn't.
Come on, guys, Papa Roach.
Papa Roach was like trying to be Limp Bizkit.
I know.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that guy?
I don't
Did he
know.
still perform or something?
They apparently still post cut my life into pieces memes on their Twitter.
That's the best they could do. They just want a meme page.
I was into that song as a teenager. It was
Well, I think
pretty good.
everybody.
When you first heard it, you were like, okay, this kind of slaps. And then you
Yeah.
hear other songs by Papa Roach, and you're like, where's the slap?
There was laughs.
That's like how I felt with Disturbed a lot of times.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah.
And I've seen them live, and they're like their energy's.
Oh, you got to
peak.
see Disturbed live?
I saw them live 2011. It was them.
I've heard their concerts are pretty lackluster.
They're very especially since Godsmack was before them. They were like doing like dual drum solos and things like that, where they real like big energy.
Mhm.
Lit.
And
Yeah.
then Disturbed came
no.
on, and it was like, what just happened?
I actually enjoyed seeing Disturbed live just because I was with Jacob and we had just watched the Disturbed meme video where it goes yumma numma numma numma. So we were just thinking about that the whole time.
It's like the freaking. Oh,
that
God.
meme is like the whole song, What's It Down with the Sickness, but it's just him doing the
Oh, there's that one too, but I was talking about the yumma numma numma now one. Did you guys see that?
Numma, numma, numma. No.
It's so funny. It's like every Disturbed vocal is just yumma numma na yumma numma numma.
Oh wait, the video Disturbed shreds.
Yeah, or no, it's
No,
the,
that is a good one
Oh,
too.
the
but-
enemy.
I just love the random boo, 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 boo. Oh no, that's not one. Never mind. Hold on. The fucking garbage can when he's in the garbage can. Just
Oh yeah.
fucking-
Oh, my
You
God.
guys do Magic Mike as a YouTuber?
I was about to say
That's the
movie?
one. That's the one. The one he's talking about. Slipknot Shreds is Magic Mike.
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
Magic Mike, he just makes a bunch of like concert performances of bands, mostly like new metal and stuff, and he makes them sound awful.
Like
Did he do the Motley Crue one?
He probably did.
Like literally,
I think so.
And usually all of them you see is because like literally it's like live performances. But if they do like wacky things, like or like it will just be like this, he'd be like me, like just like random stuff like that.
Like there was a
Over-
Slipknot build-up song. It was like Psychosocial or something,
Yeah.
and then it just opens up with like the clown and this percussion with like a trash can, and he interrupts the vocals by going like bum bum bum.
And it sounds like a literal trash can.
It
like, not
sounds so
even-
bad.
I just look-
My favorite though is the fucking fruit salad psychosocial one.
Yeah, that one's great.
That
I've heard that
slaps.
so many
That
times.
slaps.
the one that slaps though is the freaking baby psychosocial. That one
Which
actually
one?
slaps.
Baby like Justin Bieber?
Yeah, baby.
Oh yeah,
Psychosocial
I think I've
actually
heard that like
slaps.
a couple times on like a meme page. or
Actually
something.
slaps. Oh yeah.
That's a good one. Point of that, go subscribe to Magic Mike.
Okay.
I think that probably wraps it up.
Yeah, I think this is
Are there any other points that you wanted to make, Elias?
Well, we were going
He
to
is
talk about
the
Anthony Fantano.
Oh yeah, if you guys
Oh,
want
yeah,
to talk
we do
about
have to talk
Fantano, we
about-
can.
well, I'm not familiar with the Anthony Fantano, so
I think the important things to cover before we wrap up are the Fantano thing and worth the 13-year wait. I think that was kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we went too in depth in that, but like, I think that's an important thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think. Yeah, that's a hard one for me. Does anyone else want to chime in on
On the
that?
13-year wait?
Yeah.
Well, let's start with Fantano first.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that Fantano's review was mostly fair. However, I will still say that his criticisms of the performances overall are kind of unfair to me. At least I think that. Well, it isn't like a typical 2 album where it's like all the time, like all the members are showing their capability full time. I do think that at least one member is doing something interesting at some point throughout each song, although it particularly is Danny Carey. Like, that's why I made the point earlier that pissed Ian off so bad about Adam Jones phoning it in. I do think that other than when Adam Jones is like doing a cool riff or soloing crazy, it's not really anything impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that the bass performances on Fear Inoculum, they're really good. However, they don't move past like what the guitar does as much on his other albums, I find. Maybe I have to go back and listen to it more to find the nuance there that I'm missing, perhaps. But I do think that the bass didn't have as much depth to it, and that I think should have been actually talked about more in that review.
Well, I also feel maybe the bass, because the bass is supposed to support the guitar, and then since the guitar wasn't as on point, the bass kind of sounds out weirdly in a sense.
Yeah.
So like the bass is supposed to be like the supporting character that helps drive the point forward, not the guy that drives it forward by showing off. So when the guitar isn't kind of on point, maybe the bass it feels like what.
Yeah, maybe it just feels disjointed at times.
Yeah, it just feels very. It didn't feel like a lot of times the band was on the same page for a lot of tracks other than Tempest.
It's interesting that you say that because at least a Tool fan will tell you, like in most prior Tool tracks, the bassist is actually sometimes the most driving force, especially in like the beginning and the build up of the song. At least for Tool, as a band. But like you would think that wouldn't be the case for other bands, but Tool does that pretty well. So it's interesting that you bring that up.
Well, I mean, I feel like
from someone who doesn't usually.
Well, I'm saying, but like it depends on the band as well. Like Rush does it very well. Like
he's the singer.
Yeah, he's the singer and the synth player, and he's practically everything. So
yeah.
But it's Rush, April Wine, Alice in Chains. They do that very well. But at the same time, they still recognize the guitar is the main character.
Sure, yeah.
It is next to the vocals. It is the main character, and the bass is supporting. So
yeah.
The bass will chime in every so often, but it can't be like the thing that moves everything apart like forward. So.
I would hate that if that was the case for like every song
on
this album or any Tool album.
Yeah.
But Anthony Fantano,
yeah.
I think it was just, like I said, going off his point, he didn't, like, I can't remember any other time he did review a Tool album. I didn't see the other one.
Well,
No, he hasn't.
yeah, because
Exactly.
he didn't start until like after 10,000 Days came out.
It was like early 2010s. He
Yeah.
started
So-
doing stuff.
That being said, I don't know if he has listened to the full Discovery, and like I said, he didn't judge the performances as I feel as he should have.
Yeah.
That's just my point on Anthony Fantano. He's a little pretentious. We can keep that in mind. Let's just keep that in mind.
He didn't like the synth in Chocolate Chip Trip.
Yeah, that
was
also
what,
tripped me up too. It's
I actually
like
like the synth a lot in that track.
Yeah, I thought it sounds really cool, but I don't know. He like got mad about the synth in another track too. I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't like the weird synths.
It might just not be his cup of tea.
Yeah,
or maybe it reminds him too much of 70s prog rock.
maybe.
So who knows?
When I think of Fantano and all of, because I think I used to watch some of his reviews and stuff, and every time, like there would be too many points that he make where it's like it's just kind of, it's contradictory to like what a lot of people say. And that's fine. You can have a different opinion, but it's the way that he judged it and the way that he criticized it. It almost felt it was a little personalized, and it felt like he was talking more about his tastes and how he feel that they should have done it based off of his tastes. And I know a lot of people like that. That's
He's
fine.
very indie too.
Yeah.
Like he pushes indie albums hard.
Yeah.
Like, and he reviews them more likely positive. There are some indie albums that he hasn't, but mostly if it's like a AAA band, he's gonna be a lot harder on everything.
For sure.
Literally every point. So if he did not like that synth a little bit, he's going to be like, I did not like that synth at all. And he honestly has admitted that on his live streams too.
Yeah.
Where he does criticize bigger bands harder because they should know better. And I'm like,
wow. Is that like wording
That's
he would
kind
use?
of a fair point. Though.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like, do they have to push themselves always to that point in every song, really?
Yeah, I would disagree.
To make it bad?
No,
To call it
no.
bad? I
No.
don't think so.
I mean,
Like-
I would say it's a kind of a fair point, but I wouldn't hold everyone to that standard. That's kind of unfair, to be honest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where he kind of gets disjointed a little bit. But that's because I have watched him a lot and I have watched his live streams
It's no
on,
disrespect.
not on regular, but
No disrespect to his work. No disrespect to what he does. But I think pretentious is a very good adjective to use to describe like how he judges and how he criticizes work that isn't in his normal. And Tool, I don't think he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would listen to prog, right?
Well,
Or,
he
like,
did say
anything
that the
Tool.
rest of their discography is flawless.
Flawless was
Yeah,
the word he used.
that's the word he used.
Is this Ian?
All right, then Fantano, whatever.
Yeah.
Is that your real name? Ian Maynard.
and that's why I can't agree with like how he rated the performances of this album. It's just like they are good, It's just like like I said, there's some songs that aren't good, but I'm not gonna say like the performance was literally bad.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and that's the thing about
Yeah.
Tool. Like I would say one of the strongest things about Tool is their performance. They're solid together. Anyone who's seen Tool live will tell you like they sound good live just as much as they sound good on their albums. And I wouldn't say that Like, so what you're saying is Fantano would say, like, the performance was subtracted from, like, based on a track?
Like, I can't remember his actual word, but he said, like, most of the stuff, it felt, like, bland and stuff like that. You know, like, yes, I could agree, like, yes, I could skip some songs, but to make it be, like, no, it's bland, not really.
I would never say anything about that. Like, even in this album. Like, I would have to disagree with him saying that.
Yeah. And even though we did make similar points, we weren't saying it's not listenable, you know.
Yeah, like, I have no feelings like towards any. Maybe the last one.
And what was his overrating again?
4.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't give it a 4.
Yeah.
I wasn't in love with it, but I wouldn't give it a 4.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that he gave it a 4 just because he did find it absurdly patience testing, and I kind of sympathize with him on that. However, I feel like it's also weird to, as I'm going to go back to my original point, criticizing the performances he did. I feel like maybe he just had really high expectations, like, as we were talking about earlier, with the band coming together as they should. And it's like, yeah, Tool does know that, but at the same time, it's like, it is good to get out of your comfort zone as an artist. So
For sure.
maybe they were just trying to let one instrument take its course, and then the band would just follow that. However, that is just the thing about this album, is that it didn't pan out perfectly, like a Tool album usually would.
When you say, like, you said patience tester was, like, the word you used?
Patience testing.
Would you say, like, I guess that can transition to, like, the next question about the whole 13-year wait thing, or was that what you're referring to? Like,
I guess, I would just say that this just magnifies it more.
Yeah.
When it's been, like, more than a decade at that point.
And when he was patience test, like, in the song.
Oh,
in the
while
songs.
listening to the tracks. Okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood. But I will agree with that then.
Yeah.
So yeah, brings to the next point. Was it worth a 13-year wait?
For a diehard Tool fan, sure.
Yeah, I would say for a diehard Tool fan, almost, but I really do think that the lack of cohesion as an experience really is the one thing I do think that was the one thing they should have worked on, regardless of what I mentioned with, like, the instruments, like, being structured differently. I still think that they had a lot more potential than they saw in this album.
Yeah. I can say when it dropped, I wasn't like, Tool! Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't, like, freak out or anything. I saw it drop, I listened to it, I was like, okay, there's positives, a couple negatives, but
Yeah,
it's a Tool album.
I'm glad they released that single first, because I kind of knew going in that it might not be what I was expecting. you know?
Yeah.
for sure.
But yeah,
I'll say I was surprised when they dropped Tool. I thought it was gonna be like Half-Life 3. It was never gonna happen. Everybody was like, "Oh, dude, well, that new Tool album, like, it's never gonna fucking happen."
I suppose in that light, then yeah, there is some, like, kind of shock value in there.
I think that
they did it. Like, okay.
I'll say this: I don't regret listening to the album because I got to sit down and talk with you guys about it. This has been really fun. And but secondly, I also let Tempest album I'm in love with, to be honest. So I think through a craftsmanship eye rather than as a Tool fan, I think 13 years was it worth it? Maybe they could have released a little sooner.
Oh yeah,
because I feel like they were doubting themselves maybe a little too much.
Perhaps.
Because I feel like every artist, when they're working on something for so long, they're like, because I can attest to it. I've worked on multiple screenplays for 4 years straight, and I'm like, is this even any good at this point?
Right.
Like, just throw it out there. I don't care. So, I mean, I'm not saying they did that, but like, so maybe from a craftsmanship point, yes and no. Maybe it probably was kind of worth the wait, but still didn't hate it. I enjoyed it.
Sure.
So I enjoyed it. Just wish it was short.
Yeah.
Make it summarize.
I think we're all on that same page.
Yeah, I honestly don't think it was worth the 13-year wait, because bringing back to my original point, how it changes, how music changes, and like back to his point about like how it was working with other albums that have pulled from other albums. I think if it was released sooner, it would probably have been received a little better.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And that's why I personally don't think it was worth the 13-year wait to release that.
Yeah, and plus it's like we don't know how long it's going to take for the next one, you know, and we're hoping that the next one will be maybe a little bit more exciting.
Oh, we'll be dead.
Yeah.
It'd be funny right after, like a year later, like, hey, we actually have another album. All the other fucking shit we cut.
It's been a while, so we're gonna release an album every year. Sorry, guys.
All right. Well, if that's all the points we want to make, I think that's a pretty good wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been the listening circle, ladies and gents.
If that's what we're going to call it. We still don't know yet.
I don't know yet.
But I like that name. It's a good idea. Thank you all for listening. We are currently looking for, well, I haven't asked anyone in the room yet, but we need someone to like make a logo and everything once we have a name. So
I work as a graphic designer. We'll just get on top of that.
Awesome. We'll get that done. We'll have a website up. It's going to be on all platforms that you're probably listening to it on right now.
Gang.
So Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang. All right. Cool. Thank you all for listening.
Thank
Peace
you
out.
guys. Thank you guys.
Much love.